Anthony, usually I like to, when the sound kicks out on a particular track, that seems to be a good cue to do the intro. So do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, that sounds good. No problem.
Great.
Hi, everybody. If you guys remember, it's Anthony from Futurology, your college and career district wide counseling service program. And I'm really excited today to have Ethan Sawyer here. He's a friend, a colleague, and he's been doing this a long time. And he's an expert in this. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce him. Before we get into that, just a couple housekeeping items. One is it's really important, and I see it's already happening, that you guys are participating and sharing. That's really so important. I really encourage you to engage with Ethan tonight, and I see a lot of people grateful for a lot of things, so that's fantastic. We'll be recording this, and as usual, we'll put the link up on our Futurology website. So be on the lookout for that. That'll hopefully be available in the next week. So take a look on our site. You can, if you miss some things or you want to go back and listen again, feel free to do that. And then again, in early June, when school gets out, Ethan's running another workshop. So if you want to come and hear about the UC Personal Insight questions, he'll be doing another one there. So again, there's a lot of great stuff happening. So with that said, you'll see his name right up there, Ethan Sawyer, the college essay guy. But again, I'm really excited. He's been working with students, thousands of students. He's been running. There he is, right there. He's a well sought after speaker, and he's really graciously accepted our invitation to do a couple of webinars for us and our students here in the district to get you started on writing your college essay. So a few facts about it, and I'm sure he'll mention it too, or he'll probably be a little modest about it, but he's got a BS from Northwestern. He actually went to UC Irvine as well. That's where I went, but he got an MFA. And he got some other counseling certificates. Like. Exactly. Some of the things you might hear me say is a little BS, but other than that, he's definitely well received with that. He's been to more schools than I have first cousins, I think. And so there's a lot of education, and he's lived all over the world. Has a beautiful family, and most of all, he really will take care of you tonight in your essay workshop. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan. Again, through the chat tonight, I'll be checking out some questions, but a lot of times Ethan will wait till the end. But if there's something that comes up, I might just answer it for you as the moderator. But other than that, enjoy tonight, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you. What a beautiful intro from a beautiful man. That was really gracious. Thanks, Anthony. I'm going to switch y'all to the screen because, this is me. Hi, I'm a real person. And I'm just going to turn the screen share on. So hi, I'm Ethan, and this is my jam. College essays are my thing, so I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all about it for a little bit, to bend your ear, as they say. I don't know if they say that in Britain or somewhere. So if you email info@collegeessayguy.com, I'll send you a link to this presentation. In fact, what we can do probably to simplify things is, Anthony, I can just have you post this on the Futurology site, a link to the presentation, a PDF, which has got the guide to brainstorming and 5 resources that'll save you $3,480. It's true. And I'll explain at that link how to do that. So we just did a little gratitude check-in for some folks for typing in some things that they're grateful for. Let's do another one. What are you celebrating today? That's another question I like to ask when I'm getting started with folks. So I'm celebrating that I'm back from China and I'm hanging out with my daughter. We went to Porto's over and got some Cuban food this afternoon. So I'm celebrating that I had a Cuban sandwich a little while ago. What are you guys celebrating? Type it in the chat box. Let's see. I'm celebrating. I'm just going to keep riffing here for a second. I'm celebrating that I have clean water to drink. That's not true for everybody in the world. And it hasn't always been true for me in my life. I moved around quite a bit. As Anthony mentioned, I lived in lots of different countries. What are you guys celebrating? Kate's celebrating a successful school year. Julie's giving a shout out, some love to Portos. Guam empanadas, I got a couple. End of finals, I feel you. Genevieve and Andrew are coming in at the same time. Ramadan, awesome. Getting over a cold, Haley, I'm really glad for you. Yeah, it's like there's just something about, even though I'm not in school anymore, the end of the school year is like that, making that transition. And beautiful, Anthony's celebrating his son at perfect attendance. Cool. just trying to get us in the right headspace. There's so much to celebrate. And yeah, I'm just grateful to connect with you all in that way. So here are some things that Anthony said about me already. The BS stands for Bachelor's of Science, I swear. But I got a couple counseling certificates after I studied theater for about, 8 or 10 years. And just found I'm wearing the same shirt as in that picture. That's funny. I must like that shirt. But I spent like 10 years. Really, this was my job out of college, helping students with their college essays. And I started getting deeper into counseling and found that I just had such a love for it. And I got a couple certifications, one in Myers-Briggs, which is like, what's your personality type, and then hypnotherapy. And so don't worry, I will not be hypnotizing you on this call, but I could. And some of the exercises that I do that you'll find in my book and on my website are you kind of create this hypnotic or trance-like state. And it's not a scary thing, I swear. We get in that state all the time. And I wrote a book. And some people read it, which was cool. So I love this stuff so much that I even took on the name of College Essay Guy. So that's kind of how I'm known. And this is my amazing daughter, Zola. This is just like a gratuitous baby picture that makes people go, aw. And I mentioned her earlier. And this is when she drinks too much. This is what she looks like. So anyway, so I love buffets. That's something else you should know about me. My favorite buffet is the Bellagio. Have y'all been to this? It's like ridiculous. It's, $50 or $60. And at the Bellagio, they've got, like a whole section of seafood, crab legs for days. They've got a ridiculous dessert cart that just like is like the whole middle of the section. They've got all kinds of meats if you go for that. Now, when I went there for the first time, I was actually eating vegetarian, so this wasn't my plate. But I really appreciated that they had the variety. Did I mention the desserts? I'm mentioning all these things. Why? Because I'm about to share with you 113 college essay resources. And you might be thinking, dear Lord, that's a lot. Well, treat it like a buffet. So you don't have to eat everything, but take what you like, and you can always go back for seconds. And I'll share with you in the PDF some links so you can check out some of these things a little bit more. Lola May said there are 3 things to remember when teaching. Know your stuff, know whom you are stuffing, and then stuff them elegantly. So that's my calling. It's what I'm going to be trying to do with you guys. But make sure you don't end up like this guy. So, graze if you like. All right. So here are questions that, just to get the basics out of the way, that students wonder about. How long does the essay need to be? So the one that we're going to be focused on today for this 40 minutes is your main personal statement that's written for the Common App. And the Common App is a system that most private schools use. It's not the only system, but it's one that you'll probably use, be most familiar with. And the main personal statement is going to be 650 words, which is about a page, and it takes about 3 minutes to read it out loud. So I like to tell students this is like a short story, a short film of your life. Some students wonder, how many essays do I need to write? Well, beside this one, which is going to be the one that's going to probably take you the most time, you'll need to write a couple what are called supplemental essays. So those are essays that are required by particular schools for particular prompts. If you're applying to the UCs, that's a whole separate webinar, and they don't even call those essays. Those are called personal insight questions. So we won't be dealing with those today, but those are separate from the Common App, 350 words each, and you got to write 4 of those. Which matters more, my story or my writing ability? Sometimes students ask. And what I'll say is that it really depends on who's reading it. Some readers really want to just hear a great story. And some are looking at this as like, can this student write? Can they string thoughts together in an interesting and cohesive way? So it's important to make sure both are rock solid. How much do the essays matter? It depends, and it'll depend on the school, and it'll depend on your major, and it'll depend on your grades and test scores and all those sorts of things. So it's kind of a complex question to answer briefly, but I'll say that grades and test scores usually matter a little bit more. That students or colleges kind of across the board are looking at those as higher indications of how you're going to perform. Of course, there are some schools that are test optional, but when students ask me if my grades are bad, can I get into Harvard with a great essay? The answer is no. Okay, but here are the questions that I want to deal with today. How do I decide on a topic? I'll give you some resources for that. How do I structure my essay? I'll talk to you for a few minutes on that. What does a great essay look like? I'll give you an example. How do I outline it? We'll talk briefly about that. And how do I bring my essay to life? I'll give you 2 tips for that. Now, this sounds like a lot. Again, so don't try and, if you need to sort of, lean back a little bit and sort of, whatever you got to do emotionally. I know that sometimes people are like furiously scribbling notes. If that's your style, that's cool too. But let's try and get a little taste of each of these. So how do I figure out what to write about? How do I pick my topic? Well, I've got two exercises, and I've experimented with a lot of exercises, but these two are my favorites. And I'll just do a brief version of each of these. The first exercise is called the essence objects exercise, and it goes like this. Usually it takes about 10 minutes, but I'm just going to do like a 2-minute version with you. So imagine a box, and in this box is a set of essence objects. And what is an essence object? Well, an essence object is an object that represents something deeper. It could be a relationship that you have, or something that's really important to you. And I'll give you a couple examples. So one of my essence objects, as I'm looking around here, would be my friendship bracelet that I'm wearing on my wrist. And my friendship bracelet's important to me because my wife gave it to me. In fact, she gives me a friendship bracelet every year. It's the only gift she gives me for my birthday. And it's important to me because what's kind of cool about it, like metaphorically, is that it like wears down. So it like falls off of me after wearing it every day for however long, 8 months. And then she makes another one for me and she gives it to me on my birthday. So she like reties the friendship bracelet. And there's this cool moment where I feel like we're remaking the connection. And so it reminds me of my best friend, my wife. So that's one. Another one would be barbecue sauce, because I love barbecue sauce. And it reminds me of my grandmother, who's from the South, who used to cook with barbecue sauce and, make ribs for us. And so that would be one. Another one would be a North Carolina basketball, because I grew up playing basketball with my dad. And that was one of the ways that he expressed his love and care for me. So I would put that basketball down as a representation of my connection with my dad. So you get the idea. I might put down a Bible because I was raised in the church as a missionary kid, moving around a lot. I might put down something that represented moving around a lot. The kind of the cliche version would be like a passport with stamps in it. But let's see, what represents moving around to me? I would do like a series of foods, because I think I track, travel from the foods that I eat. So anyway, if we were to do this exercise together, I'd give you a few minutes to just start thinking about your essence objects, but maybe you can just come up with one right now. What's an object that represents something deeper for who you are? Maybe it represents someone who's important in your life. Maybe it's a quality of yours. And feel free to type it in the chat box. You don't have to explain what it is, but just what is your essence object? So we've got bed coming in, basketball shoes, rubber band. Feel free to share as you think of them. So that's the first exercise. And if you Google essence objects exercise, you'll hear a 12-minute audio clip where I'm making some taquitos. And by the end of the time the taquitos are ready, you'll have your essence objects list created. And I'll explain how to use this in just a bit. The next exercise I love to use is called the values exercise. And what it involves is looking at this list of values and choosing your top 10 most important values. And then once you've done that, and here's like the rest of the list, and you can write in some if you want, I ask students to choose their top 5. And then once you've done that, choose your top 3. So we don't have to do the whole thing now, even though it only takes like 5 minutes. I'm just kind of, this again, buffet style. So we're just doing a little sampling. But I'd just be curious, as you guys are looking at this list right now, which values are important enough to you that you feel like if you were to write 650-word personal statement, that these values would probably end up in there in some form. So take a look. What are some of your core values? And again, if they're not listed, you can just, list them. You can create your own in the bottom right corner. As you're thinking about that, one of the things I'll say for the, some of the objects that came in, Nami, you mentioned music. I'd be curious to know what object could represent music, even more specifically, because it's hard to see music, because that can mean many different things. It can be really useful to concretize it, meaning to come up with something like an image or an object that would really make it, something that exists in the world, because that can sometimes, make us think of, for example, lots of different values or qualities, and our mind starts to get activated when we have a concrete image or object. So Genevieve says success, affection, and compassion. You can learn about someone's personality just by seeing the combination of these. Freedom, fame, knowledge, recognition, job tranquility. There's an interesting theme there, Haley. So this is just a really simple exercise, and I'm kind of going through it fast just to kind of tell you about it, not actually do it. But if you Google values exercise, you'll see a video, and it's got like a 4-minute version of this where I just, in a video, like walk you through it. So these two exercises, if you do these and take your time, and by take your time, I mean like take 15, 20 minutes, you should get a really good start towards finding some potential topics for your essay. Because each one of these is going to create, I mean, there's a story behind each one of these, but behind each essence object, behind each value that you choose. And each one of those could potentially lead to an essay. So it could be a combination of them, or it could be that one object or one value begins a story. So these are two of my favorite exercises. My favorite prompt is a prompt that MIT uses now. It used to be used by the UC schools. And it's describe the world you come from and tell us how it's shaped your dreams and aspirations. And if you look at that essence objects list, once you've created it, you should have a pretty good description of your world, of a lot of the pieces and qualities and relationships and value and all those things that are connected to your world. And then if you think about your dreams and aspirations, which can be interesting and useful to talk about in an essay sometimes, I find that if we talk about our values, those values are intimately connected to who we want to be, what we want to do. In fact, I would think of a career not as the end, like I'm working really hard to become a doctor. I think that's just the beginning, or it's just one method or a means by which we experience and express our values. So to re-say that more simply, rather than thinking of your career as the end, think of it as the means by which you express and experience your values. So I love thinking about values, and I'll say more about them in a few minutes. Here are some other ways to find your topic. And this is part of the pre-work that I give to all of my private students, the students that I work with one-on-one. So number one, the essence objects exercise. And number two, the values exercise. I find those to be a great starting point to get the creative juices flowing. Beyond that, and these are all Googleable, which is a funny word to say, Googleable. The hardest thing to say 3 times fast, by the way, is girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle. Try it sometime. Anyway, so the 21 details exercise is basically a list of 21 random facts about yourself. It can be really fun to create. And if you Google that, you'll see some examples of that. The everything I want colleges to know about me exercise is just take a blank sheet of paper, go to Starbucks or coffee shop or wherever, and just make a list by yourself or with your, family or with a friend of everything you want colleges to know. And you can get creative with that, draw pictures, whatever you want to put on that. And then I also encourage students to use some kind of personality assessment or, aptitudes and interests evaluator. So the two that I like, one is called You Science, and I think it's like $10. And then Do What You Are is a great book that you can get for like $1 on Amazon. And it like changed my life. And it basically gives you a personality assessment. And then within a few minutes, you start to look at a few careers based on that personality. And you can sort of look at what am I interested in? And then what careers might that go with? And for students who are like, have no clue what they want to do and who'd like to have a better idea, this is the book for you. So those are some other resources. My favorite question to ask when it comes to finding your topic, or once you think you may have found your topic, ask yourself, is this my deepest story? And if it's not, keep digging, keep poking around. You can ask, could I turn this into my deepest story? Or is there some other story waiting to be told? Okay, it's a great question to ask when you're not sure. That question is sort of a litmus test. Okay, second question. So once I've got my topic, and I'm not assuming that you have your topic already, I'm just sharing resources for you to find your topic, then how do you structure your essay? Well, go back to this prompt. Describe the world you come from and tell us how the world has shaped your dreams and aspirations. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that prompt and working with students on that prompt. And in doing so, I found that in this question of world, some students that I work with have been through challenges in their life. So if, you listening, ask yourself, have I been through challenges in my life? Yes or no? And then ask yourself, in terms of my dreams and aspirations, do I have a sense of my dreams and aspirations? Do I know what I want to be or do or study in the future? Yes or no? And in answering those two questions, you'll find that they split into 4 types of college essays. And these are not types of students. So it's not like you are a type A or you are a type D. It's just 4 different ways of structuring an essay. So in the type A essay category, and I've just arbitrarily labeled them, we've got students who have faced challenges and who know what they want to study. Type B, we've got students who have not faced challenges, but who have some sense of what they want to study. Type C, yes, challenges, but don't know what I want to be or do or study. And then type D, no challenges and don't know what I want to study. So, and by the way, just sort of take a second to that and ask, okay, well, which one of these kind of resonates with me? I'm going to talk about 2 structures. Narrative structure, which works well for the types A and C essays, and montage structure, which works well for B and D types. Ooh, Haley asked a great question. What do you define as challenges? Haley, it's more important, I'd say, what you define as challenges. And what I mean by that is, let me give you some way of thinking about it. If the experience or the experiences truly changed your life, and let me say it in a more poetic way, shifted your molecules, like let's say, Haley, you were this one way, and then this thing happened to you, and then you were this other way, then that would qualify for me as a challenge. But really, it's up to you. You get to define that. And if you might be wondering, well, I have something, but I'm not sure if it's a thing. Part of it is just kind of trying it out and seeing if there's really something there. And I've got an exercise that I'll share with you in a few minutes that'll help you look at that. By the way, if anybody's got questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. If I don't get to it right away, I'll definitely cover it at the end. So narrative structure and montage structure. Here are the elements of narrative structure. And this is basically going to be familiar to you from every movie you've ever seen. So most films or stories start with status quo, and they're establishing the world. It was just another sunny day in Los Angeles when all of a sudden, boom, something happens. It's called the inciting incident, and usually happens between the 10-minute and 15-minute movie, like moment in the movie. So you can actually look, and time it. It's right there. We understand something about the world, and then something happens. You can look at Finding Nemo or Toy Story or, basically any Pixar movie. It's really formulaic. Raising of the stakes comes next. And raising of the stakes helps us to understand why this thing was such a big deal. In dramas, it threatens to change not only that main character's day, but their week and their life, And then in action movies, it threatens to affect not only this one person, but their family and their community and maybe the nation and then civilization as we know it. It goes out to sort of, expands in the, the biggest action movies, or maybe the universe is threatened, in like Star Wars or Star Trek, So at some point, there's a turning point or a moment of truth. And in the moment of truth, oftentimes the main character has to make a big decision. And the results of that decision will lead them down a path that will create what's called the new status quo. And it's important that at the end of the movie or the end of the story, or in this case, the end of the college essay, that who you become is not who you were. That's what was called catharsis. It's that clear change. And it's possible to indicate that clear change in just a single sentence or a single image, as I'll show you in just a minute. So here's an essay, a great essay. This is, I mentioned that I would show you one, written by a student. She didn't call it with debate. It's just the way I needed something to refer to it. But this is a student who had faced challenges and who did know what she wanted to study. So I'm just going to read this essay to you. It'll take me just 2 or 3 minutes. And I want to point out the elements of the narrative structure. So here they are again: status quo, inciting incident, raising of the stakes, moment of truth, and new status quo. Okay. The clock was remarkably slow as I sat, legs tightly crossed, squirming at my desk. Just raise your hand, my mind pleaded. Ask. But despite my urgent need to visit the restroom, I remained seated, begging time to move faster. You see, I was that type of kid to eat French fries dry because I couldn't confront the McDonald's cashier for some Heinz packets. Little alert for you guys, that's an essence object for her. Those Heinz packets represent her shyness, her fear. I was also the type to sit crying in front of school instead of asking the office if it could check on my late ride. Essentially, I chose to struggle through a problem if the solution involved speaking out against it. So if it wasn't already clear in the first paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph, she clarifies what the problem is. And this is the status quo. So she's so afraid to talk and, she's shy, super, super shy. There's different ways that you could describe that. Okay. We've established the problem or the challenge. My diffidence was frustrating. My parents relied on me, the only one able to speak English, to guide them and always anticipated the best from me. However, as calls for help grew, the more defunct I became. I felt that every move I made, it was a gamble between success and failure. For me, the fear of failure and disappointment far outweighed the possibility of triumph. So I took no action and chose to silently suffer under pressure. Now, what she's doing here is she's raising the stakes, because not only does this impact her, but who else? Her parents. Why? Because they rely on her, the only one able to speak English, and she doesn't say it, but it's to translate. So now it's important that she get over this, not just for her, but for them. So now we're starting to kind of go, okay, well, this is real. This just got real. Near meltdown, I knew something needed to be done. Mustering up the little courage I had, I sought ways to break out of my shell, without luck. Recreational art classes ended in 3 boring months. I gave up self-defense after embarrassing myself in class. After-school band, library volunteering, and book clubs ended similarly. Continued effort yielded nothing. Now, she's further raising the stakes because she's giving us a sense of all the stuff that she tried to do to overcome this shyness and failed at. This is also a vulnerable admission because you wouldn't normally think, oh, I'm going to put all my failures in my essay. But look what she does. She puts them here and frames them in a way that gives us a sense that it's not that she's just a failure and like a bad or dumb person. She's actually working really hard. So there's a way that you can reframe your failures. And in this case, she was worried that her activities list would seem like it was all over the place. But instead, she puts them in this context and we see, wow, she was trying really hard. Raise the stakes. I tried everything. Disillusioned and wrung dry of ideas, I followed my mom's advice and joined a debate club. Okay, worst idea ever, right? Consider that your inciting incident is the answer to what is the worst thing that could happen to the main character, which in your essay is you. For the girl who's too shy to ask to go pee or ask for ketchup packets, joining a debate club, as she says here, as expected, the club only reaffirmed my self-doubt. Eye contact, greater volume, no thanks. And what she's doing right there is what every character in those, in Indiana Jones or, all those films where they're like, we want you to go on one last mission. They're called to adventure. What do they always say? No. Right? What do you say when you've been called on to the greatest adventures of your life? Probably at the start, you were resistant. This is like human nature. It also does a powerful thing, and it engages us, the viewers, the readers, going, come on, you've got to do it. This is going to be the great adventure. So here's the great adventure. She's resisting it. But transition, turning point. Soon the club moved on from how to make a speech lessons to the exploration of argumentation. We were taught to speak the language of persuasion and play the game, notice she calls it a game, of debate. Eventually, I fell in love with it all. Turning point. By high school, I joined the school debate team, began socializing, and was even elected to head several clubs. I developed critical and analytical thinking skills and learned how to think and speak spontaneously. Okay, y'all, heads up. Highlight this. This is the most important 2 sentences in this essay. Why? Because this is the critical glue that connects the challenges to her future. She hasn't gotten to the future part yet, but what skills or what values or resources or what I like to call superpowers will she carry forth with her? They're in this paragraph. Look again. By high school, I joined the school debate team, began socializing. So I started to get better with people, was even elected to head several clubs. So leadership, critical and analytical thinking skills, speaks for itself, and learned how to think and speak spontaneously. This is a girl who's developed some skills. What's she going to do with them? I became proud and confident. Moreover, I became eager to play my role in the family, and family relations strengthened. In fact, nowadays, my parents are interested in my school's newest gossip. 4 years of debate, and now I'm the kid up at the whiteboard, the kid leading discussions, and the kid standing up for her beliefs. Pause right there. Status quo was I was super shy, couldn't ask to go pee. Now she says, I'm the kid up at the whiteboard. New status quo. So this is what I meant by you can have an image at the start that shows who you were and another image later on to show who you've become if you've gone through an experience that has changed your life. And as I said, Haley asked, well, what's a challenge? Well, you might not think that shyness would be like an extreme challenge, but in this context, it was really debilitating for her. So even shyness can count. More importantly, so this is the end of the essay, and you got to answer the question, so what? So there's a tip. At the end of your essay, answer the question, so what? Here's how she answers it. More importantly, she writes, I now confront issues instead of avoiding them. It's exciting to discover solutions to problems that affect others, as I was able to do as part of the first place team for the 2010 United Nations Global Debates Program on climate change and poverty. I take a natural interest in global issues and plan to become a foreign affairs analyst or diplomat by studying international affairs with a focus on national identity. Notice how specific she gets. Now, one other tip that I'll give is if you have something you want to brag about, like you did win some big award, make sure that it's connected to a value. What do I mean by that? Well, in this case, she's not just saying out of nowhere she won this award. She's talking about how after a long process of trying to find her voice, she found it, and this award is evidence of finding it. So how do you brag without looking like you're bragging? See if you can connect it to a value. In particular, she ends, I'm interested in the North-South Korean tension. So notice she said she wants to study national identity. What irreconcilable differences have prompted a civilization to separate? she asks. What policy implications remain vague, and sovereignty theories have their limits? How do we determine what compromises are to be made? And on a personal level, why did my grandfather have to flee from his destroyed North Korean hometown? And why does it matter? Such brilliant questions. One of the great ways to show your intelligence is to ask great questions. Final paragraph. I see a reflection of myself in the divide at the 38th parallel, because I see one part isolating itself in defense to outside threats. So she's looking at the North-South Korea dividing line and saying, that's me, because one part of me is isolating itself in defense to outside threats. Hashtag North Korea. And another part coming out to face the world as one of the fastest developing nations. Cool metaphor, huh? Look what she does with it. Just as my shy persona before debate and my extroverted character after debate are both part of who I am, the Korean civilization is also one. And just as my parents expect much from me, the first in my family to attend college, I have grand expectations for this field of study. Beautiful metaphor. Notice that she's been struggling in the whole essay to get rid of her shyness, to get over it. And then what happens at the end? The opposite. She embraces it and embraces herself more fully. And all in less than 650 words. So, how does narrative structure work? Well, status quo, I was really shy. Raising the stakes, I had to get over it. I had to get over it because my parents, and for me, tried all this stuff, didn't work out. Then I joined this debate club and the adventure begins. And really, it's a pretty quick adventure because she only had 650 words. Turning point, she falls in love with it, develops some great skills. And then she says, now I'm the kid up at the whiteboard. So that's basically how every movie works. You can steal this structure, not the essay. You can steal this structure for your personal statement if you've been through challenges. If you haven't, what do? You can do something called the montage structure. And the montage structure basically involves making a list, and I'll show you how in a few minutes, of all this stuff that you're good at or that you want the colleges to know about you. For example, you're curious, or maybe you work with your hands and are also obsessed with details, and you're a math geek. And you also maybe love sharing your knowledge with others. So you've got all this random stuff that you want the college to know about because maybe you've done these brainstorming exercises that I've suggested. The question is, how do all those things connect? Well, what you got to find for a montage structure is you got to find what I call a focusing lens or a thematic thread, something that connects everything. And in this essay, and you'll see this, you'll get a PDF handout that you can download with this essay in it. You'll see that in this essay, it's all connected because all of these qualities are going to serve the author as a dentist, which is kind of a cool and surprising ending. So you can read that one later. You don't have to, and I'll say this again, you don't have to talk about your career at the end, but you do need something to connect all your stuff. And look, that's a great essay. When you read it, you'll see that has nothing to do with challenges. You don't have to write about challenges, but we do need to understand some of what you're great at, some of your core values. Narrative structure uses causal connections. In other words, this event led to this event, led to that one. So cause and effect, right? Montage structure doesn't use causal events. It's not like one thing happened and it's led to another. It's more of like, here are all these things that are connected by this common thread, this theme. I think a great college essay should either go deep, talking about an experience or a set of experiences that really changed you. And if you don't do that, go wide. Talk about lots of different parts of yourself. Get lots of variety in there. And the narrative structure can do the former, help you go deep. The montage structure can help you go wide. Okay, third question. We're like halfway there. Take a breath. You got this. How do I outline my essay? Here are some tips. You guys remember Goonies? Remember Chunk? That's the first step. Decide on the big chunks. So if Aristotle, who was a great thinker, who once said that a story has to have a beginning, middle, and end, were to teach third grade, it might look like this. So your story, when you start to get all sort of like jumbled up and confused, just go back to the basics. What's the beginning of my story? What's the middle of my story? And what's the end? Those are the big chunks of your story. I'll give you an example. With that debate essay, which was all kinds of complex and beautiful, it's really simple. I was shy. I joined debate. And I became less shy. Oh, and by the way, I developed all these awesome qualities that are going to serve me as an international relations diplomat. Plus, I learned to embrace myself more fully. So that's I wouldn't say that's the big chunk. That's like not a necessary part of the essay, but it does do a great job of answering so what. But simple chunks. Shy, did this thing, this is what happened. For the endodontics essay, which you haven't read yet, but you can check out in the PDF, curiosity, good with hands, meticulous, helping others. These are all things I want them to know about me. How do these connect? as a, when I'm in my future career as a dentist. So real simple. I'm just trying to simplify things for y'all. Once you've done that, then it depends on the essay type. And I just want to briefly, and I have a much longer version of this, but like an hour and a half long version of this. But this is the 6-minute version of how to outline any essay. I might even do it in less than 6 minutes. Here's the simple version. So if you're writing this type A essay where you face challenges and you know what you want to study, the question is, how do you connect your past to your career, your future? And I think the answer is in those values. What do I mean? Well, you remember in that debate essay we just read, she talks about, here's some stuff that I went through. I was really shy. And then I want to become a diplomat, international relations. Well, what values did I develop through my challenges? And what superpowers did I develop based on that experience? That what I like to say is like, which ones were forged in the fire, forged in the fire of your challenges. That's what's going to create the glue that's going to help make two things that don't seem to go together. Okay. So that's the place to look. That's why that values exercise is so important. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. Second, how do you demonstrate that you have what it takes to be an excellent, whatever you want to be, if you haven't been through challenges? How do you do that? And again, you don't have to write about your career, but if you decide you want to do that, here's how you can do it. You can reverse engineer your essay by starting with the end in mind. Here's what I mean. Think about a career that you want to pick. So this endodontist, he liked helping others, detail focused, curiosity, and then come up with an example of how you've demonstrated these qualities in your life. So this student who had no idea what he wanted to write about, I said, what are you interested in studying? And he said, endodontistry. And I was like, endo what? So he explained being a dentist. And I said, okay, what are some great qualities? And then have you demonstrated these qualities? He was like, yeah, I guess so. So we made this list of great qualities that he has developed. And again, I won't get into the details now, but this is going to create the stuff of your essay. If you Google college essay guy example B, you'll see more on that. Okay. If you face challenges, but you're not sure what you want to do or be in the future, sometimes students struggle with, okay, well, how do I end my essay? And I think I come back to these values, because these values of being a critical thinker, of social justice, what are your core values? My core values are practicality, connection, human connection, love, laughter. These are my core values. Are going to be with me no matter what I'm doing. Who cares what I study and what I do? What am I really going to fight for? I'd fight for freedom. I'd fight for autonomy. You can hear my voice like kind of picking up a little bit. This is what my personal statement should be about, right? Again, don't worry too much about your career. It's just a placeholder. Okay. So what are your values? That's a great way to end your personal statement. Here's a structure. If you're kind of struggling, you think you want to write a challenges essay, but you're not sure how much to devote to each part of the essay. Try and get the challenges into the first quarter or first third of your essay. Because as a friend of mine once said, you don't get into college because your parents were divorced. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. My parents were divorced, but I think it's a funny idea. You get into college because, the college wants to know, what did you do about it? How did you process the experience? How did you metabolize it? Is a phrase I like to use. And then what did you learn from it? And there's a great essay. If you just Google significant challenges, college essay guy video, you can find an 18-minute video that breaks down an essay that uses this structure. So moving on. All right. Now, if you're in this category where you're not, if your essay is potentially in this category where you haven't faced challenges and don't know what to write about, what do you do? First of all, be patient. It might take a little bit longer, but never fear, here are 3 options. So check out this book called Do What You Are. And you can literally check it out probably at the library. If not, it's like $1 on Amazon. Go through the process at the beginning and look at some careers based on your personality type. And then I'd say search that career on something called ONET Online. There's this great occupation quick search, and you can figure out what are the skills and resources that you would need to possess in order to be great in that career. Once you've done that, you can use it as a placeholder. You can kind of plug that in as a potential ending for your essay. And then you don't need to necessarily end with that, but it can give you a path. It'll get you started thinking about what those great qualities are that you possess, because you've got them. Option 2. One student that came to me had all these ideas of the stuff that she wanted to talk about, and she had no idea how she could connect it all. So I was like, what do you love? And she's like, scrapbooking. So she hit on this idea to write the scrapbook of her life essay. And you can just Google scrapbook essay and you'll find that one. Another student loved applied math, so all of the details in his essay had to do with applied math. The more you know about something, the easier it is going to be to connect lots of different parts of yourself. One student I worked with loved cupcakes, so every single detail in her essay is cupcake related. It's sweet. Option 3, in case of emergency, if you're like really struggling, or if it's like right before the deadline as you're watching this video, just make a big list of qualities you want to show, and then basically show those in the first part of your essay. Give examples of those, but don't name them. And then at the end of your essay, name the values that have been heretofore demonstrated, and that'll get you going. That's like if you're really struggling. Okay, we're almost done. 5 more minutes. How do I bring my essay to life or make it not boring? And the way that I want to frame this is this. I've gotten a lot of mediocre advice, writing advice in my life. And so I wanted to take some of those mediocre tips and make them better. So one of the things that people say is like, choose a great opening. And it's like, yeah, of course. Yes, of course, choose a great opening. I like to give this advice. Begin with a question or a problem that must be solved. It doesn't have to be an explicit question, but it has to raise a question in the reader's mind. Why? Think of a movie that you've watched in the last whenever that in the first 15 minutes, we weren't already asking questions. Are they going to end up together? Is he going to destroy the ring? Is he going to say yes to this one last mission? Right? Here are some examples from essays I like. Bowing down to the porcelain god, I emptied the contents of my stomach. Foaming at the mouth, I was ready to pass out. My body couldn't stop shaking as I gasped for air and the room started spinning. OMG, what's happening? How did she get here? Why is she throwing up? Is she going to die? All these questions are flashing through my mind. She doesn't die. She actually finishes the essay. Sorry, spoiler alert. Next example. Here's a secret no one in my family knows. I shot my brother when I was 6. What? Yeah. Luckily, it was a BB gun. Okay. But to this day, my older brother, Jonathan, doesn't know who shot him. And I finally promised myself to confess this 11-year-old secret to him after I write this essay. Are you intrigued? Are you interested? All sorts of questions are popping up in my mind. Why did he shoot him? Did he do it on purpose? Why didn't he tell him? What happens if he tells him? Are they going to fight? Is he going to kill the author? All these questions are popping up. And by the way, his essay is so good, he doesn't even answer all these questions by the end, but it's really satisfying. And again, you can Google the title of that essay and read it. Another mediocre piece of advice is write what you know. And I'm always, whenever I hear this, I'm kind of frustrated because I'm like, I don't know. What do I know? It's like sends me into this existential like spiral downward. And I'm like, what do I know? I don't know what I know. Better advice. Use geeky language. Here's an example. I'm the math geek who marvels at the fundamental theorems of calculus, or who sees beauty in A equals whatever that says. Again, it's in the details. And this is from that endodontics essay that you'll have in the packet. One bracket off or one digit missing and the whole equation collapses. So what? And details are more than details. They can mean the difference between negative and positive infinity, an impossible range of solutions. I'm interested. And he's got geeky language, some little bit of jargon there that shows me he knows some stuff about some stuff. Y'all, if you know some stuff about some stuff, it can't hurt to put it in your essay. Not a ton because you don't want to alienate us or seem like you're bragging, but a little bit can be nice. All right, what have we talked about so far? How do I figure out what to write about? I swear to you, those 2 exercises will take you about 20 minutes. A great place to start and get inspired. How do I structure my essay? We talked about narrative structure, how movies are structured, the with debate essay, and montage structure. For the example of that, you'll need to go to the endodontics essay in the PDF that you can download. What's a great essay look like? I shared with you that. How do I structure it? And I just gave you kind of the basics of this because we're trying to cover a lot of ground. And remember, it's a buffet. How do I make the essay not boring? 2 tips. Start with a problem or a question that the reader's asking. And consider using geeky language to really liven up the essay and let them know that you know some stuff. If you're interested in more, let me give you some resources. So I've got this website that I spent a lot of time on. And there's a cool free stuff page if you click on where it says the free stuff. And it just goes on and on and on with a ton of resources. So that's kind of what I'm known for. People are like, how do you give all this stuff away for free? And I'm like, look, I'd rather it be out there helping people than sitting here on my computer. So that's kind of one of my core values is creating resources that are helpful for folks. I've also got coming up this 1-week personal statement bootcamp. So this is coming up this summer. It's a 1-week intensive online course, and it's for students primarily, but parents and counselors take it too. And really, I think, get a lot out of it. And basically, if you want to be done with your personal statement in a week, here's how to do it. Let me just switch, and I want to show you one more thing about it really quick. So I'm going to inside the course so you can see what it looks like. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Of course, here's the personal statement bootcamp. So you'll get all these video sessions. So like session 1, and then, you know, how to find your essay topic. And then each session is followed by a Q&A. So you get 30 minutes with me to basically ask questions about your personal essay topic. You know, I've got the step-by-step of how to write each of the 4 essay types is on day 2, and then Q&A. So this is a pre-recorded version, which is also available. But, you know, essentially each day I post the new videos. And then at the end, you can kind of see here that I've got some cool resources like, you know, analysis of 4 amazing essays. You've got, you know, the great college essay test. So I've got 4 qualities that I think go into a great essay. I've also got this little MP3 about how to make a decision, like if you're trying to decide between 2 topics. So this is kind of like the hypnotherapy stuff, just to kind of give you, you know, an ability to like make a choice, make a decision if that's tough for you. And then here's where you can check it out. It's here. What else I want you to know about it? So here's the live version, which is July 17th to 23rd. It's 4 to 5:30. But for students who want to get started right away, there's this online video version where you can just start, you know, tonight if you want, or as soon as you're done with classes and stuff. So that's that. And let me switch back over to my screen. Let's see. There it is. Okay. Thanks for your patience. So some of the questions that I answer on the course: how do I figure out what to write about? You know, how do I structure the essay? Is there a step-by-step process? There is. I'll walk you through it. Are any topics off limits? Sometimes students ask me that, and I've got an answer for it. You know, some students worry about oversharing in their essays, or, you know, how can I talk about my challenges in a way that's really, you know, that gets the reader, gives them a sense of, you know, what I've been through, but that doesn't, you know, overwhelm them or make it sound like a sob story. You know, how to start the essay, how to show my intelligence, how do I end, how do I make it amazing? I've got 4 qualities of an amazing essay. So anyway, over the course of the week, we talk about all these things. It's an hour a day with this Q&A. People are wondering, how much does it cost? So it's $397 is the cost for the 1-week boot camp. And I've got this early bird rate through July 1st. That's $197 for folks. Now, what I decided to do is just have a little fun. And so on this webinar, I decided that let's do it for $97. For anybody who's interested, you can enter, actually that coupon code isn't right. Actually enter Capistrano. And so for the next 20 minutes, if you're interested, you can sign up. So here's the little URL you can type in, or there should be a little thing that pops up in the corner of your screen that you can click on, and you just type in Capistrano if you're interested in that. If you've got questions, we're going to take them here in a second, but here's my email address if you've got any questions for me. And that's the 113th resource. I've got another thing that's, you know, one of the slides that I left out is there's this list of 100 brave and interesting questions, but I'll share that with you on the PDF that's downloadable. So anyway, for those interested, here's the Q&A. And if you're interested in the course, again, the coupon code is not CapoUSD, it's just Capistrano. Let's open up for Q&A. So what questions do folks have about anything related to essays?
Yeah, Ethan, we got some on the chat, so I could ask them for those students to you, and hopefully you can answer those.
Yeah, for sure. What I'll do is I'll pause for just 1 minute, just because what ends up happening is if I start answering the questions, then people forget to ask other questions.
Yeah, perfect.
So I'll just pause for a few seconds, but feel free to, share anything, Anthony, if you've got thoughts or.
Yeah. No, I also want to mention, guys, what you're seeing on the screen right now, the $97, it's typically a $400 product. So he's doing a great service and favor for CapoUSD by offering that. So if you feel like this is something you want to get started over the summer, as you know, Futurology, our program, we're not available in the summertime anyway. So if you need a resource, it's a really great resource for those of you that do know, we do some essay editing in the fall, and we do some workshops, and we have some things available, but there's a limited amount of people that are doing that. So if you're trying to do something this summer, it is a great resource, as well as all his stuff on the PDF that you're going to have access to. So I really would suggest taking advantage of that. So thank you very much, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you. There's a little, just so you guys know where to click. It says you click join me on the far right, and there's like an orange button. And it'll take you to the website, and then you click on take the course. And when you get to the take the course link, there will be a personalized page, and you basically type in Capistrano, and that's what gives you the cheaper rate. So that's it. Let's jump into these questions. So I answered Haley's question. What do you define as challenges? And then Haley, you asked, could someone fake being passionate for an essay? I'm not sure what you mean by that. But I'm really curious. So I wonder, Haley, if you could ask that in a different way, or give me an example of what you mean, because I want to try and get what you mean by that. I want to get a little more information from you. Andrew asks, if you're facing a continuous challenge in your life, would you suggest writing about it? If so, how would you talk about it and structure it? Okay. So Andrew, what I hear you saying is that there's something that's like still going on that you haven't quite gotten past yet, or gotten perspective on it just yet. That's what I'm thinking you're saying. So what I'd say for you is this. Do you feel like you have enough perspective on it that you could look back and actually draw some lessons from it? Or are you still so in it that you're like, dude, I have no idea what I learned from this because this is my life right now? One way to know is if there's an exercise that I've got called the feelings and needs exercise. And if you Google feelings and needs exercise, you can actually do that exercise. And that'll help you basically walk through and give you some sense of, based on that challenge, what you've learned from it. So it's a quick way of kind of doing a quick scan, and it takes you about 10, 15 minutes to go, okay, well, what did I learn? Did I learn stuff? Or am I still clueless about what I learned? It can also be helpful to really talk to somebody about this, because they can kind of help you suss out if it's something that, that you're going to be able to write about with some perspective. One of the great things that you're, starting this process now in June is that you've got some time before your essays due. Your essays aren't going to be due until November, maybe December. So you've got some time to process, like 6 months. So if you begin with something as simple as this exercise that I mentioned, that can be you can be on the road to getting a great topic. And if it's something that is connected, you feel like, to your deepest story, an important story for you, then, it could be a really interesting topic. So I would encourage you, Andrew, to pursue writing about it. If anything, just to learn about yourself, and not necessarily, okay, I'm definitely going to write about this, but just, see what's there, poke around in the dark with the flashlight a little bit and kind of see what's what. And so I guess I would say go for it and see what it yields. In terms of structuring it, ultimately, Andrew, in the first draft, I would say just go for it. Don't worry about word limit or anything. Just write. And then I would say ultimately, you're probably going to want to squeeze the challenges up into the first, like I mentioned earlier, like the first third of your essay. So just think of these 3 questions, but you don't need to worry about this for the first draft, but ultimately the essay should probably answer: 1, what was the challenge you faced? But remember, that's just setup. 2, what did you do about it? That's the important stuff. And what did you learn from the experience? That's especially important. So there's a simple structure for you. So let me ask, how do we get the PDF? So Anthony will post that on the Futurology website. Do you want to say anything more about that, Anthony, about how they can get the PDF, or will it be pretty clear to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's guys, I put it at the start of the session. It's, if you go to cosd-futurology.org/locker, that's where we have our past webinar videos, and we'll put a link up by that video link that we have. So if you just head over there, you'll be able to see that. Also, when we send a follow-up email, which we'll do after this for anybody who had registered, even the people who missed it, we'll send you that link again, and a link to the PDF as well, and then just information about Ethan and the program again, just about his email and stuff like that. So everybody will get that.
Cool. Haley asks, Haley asks, I met with my college counselor, and she said the way I described what I wanted to do was not passionate, quote unquote. And I agree. I tend to be unenthusiastic. I was wondering if I could create faux enthusiasm to get me into the school I want to go to. Well, there's an assumption there, Haley, that we need passion, or that passion looks a certain way. And I don't know, that seems like a complex idea, right? Enthusiasm, I don't know. I've read great essays that weren't necessarily enthusiastic. In fact, let's see. Let me try and think of an example really quick because you can probably Google it. Enthusiastic, passion. I mean, I guess my short answer is I wouldn't fake anything. I would just kind of, I guess the counselor brain in me is kind of going off, going like, well, what do you think that's about? The enthusiasm thing, like, pursue that and ask yourself, am I not enthusiastic? Do I want to be enthusiastic? Is something preventing me from being enthusiastic if I want to be? Like, it seems like they're all sort of interesting questions around this notion of enthusiasm and some assumptions about it being necessary for a great essay. And, let's see, I'm trying to think of, I don't know. I mean, you could read that with debate essay that we looked at and argue that it's not necessarily enthusiastic. It's specific, in parts, and, you could argue that it's not, but, when she talks about certain things, I don't know that there's a lot of enthusiasm or what I would call enthusiasm. So I guess what I would question about that, Haley, is it necessary? If you feel like it is necessary, what is that about for you? And just interrogate that and kind of look at that. There are so many ways to write a great essay. And one of the ways that I would encourage would be to think about, all of the qualities that you want to demonstrate. So not just one or two. So when you scan your essay, one of the questions you can ask yourself is how many core values can I really point to as being really clear, from this writer? So anyway, that's something to think about.
And Ethan, too, my college counselor antenna goes up as well when I see that. So Haley and everybody out there, if you're doing something to get into a school, but it's not something you really like to do, or you're doing it because you think you have to do it, maybe you need to be more introspective and say, why am I really doing this? Is this what I need to be doing? And so, again, as Ethan's saying, Haley, it begs for more questioning around that. So, yes, you don't need to be passionate, but are you doing things outside the classroom and in your life that really describe that you want to do that, which is what you're trying to do, or you're faking that too? And so that just, it opens up a bigger question. And so that's what I would talk to you. If you have a private college counselor, that's what I would be talking to them about. If this looks like you're just trying to make it work and fit, and it's really not there. And so that's what I'd be careful about.
Yeah. One other thing I want to share about the course, Anthony, we've talked about this before, but one of my core values, you guys, is access. And if anybody's looking at this course price and being like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, I could never afford that, if that's way out of range for you, I want you guys to know that in the name of access, I have some pay what you can spots available. So if students are looking at that and going like, wow, I don't think I could do that, there's an email address on the landing page that you can get to right there, where you can email my brother Nick, and he'll have a brief chat with you via email, and you can work something out. So I just want you guys to know that what's important to me is that we connect and you get this thing done, and you learn about yourself more than money. So if you can afford the course, great. If you can't, like I said, I'd still love to have you email Nick, and we'll we can work something out. So I just want you guys to know and hear me say that directly.
And then remember, guys, with Futurology, our program here in the district which is a free service. If you are going to be a senior and you're going to be writing your essays, you can come and meet with one of my counselors, and we can kind of look at your essay that you maybe worked on as well. So that's some additional resources that you have access through the district, that if you couldn't do some extra programming. But as Ethan said, I mean, this is a great service he provides too. These pay-as-you-go is a great program, and that he gives back to a lot of students. So consider that as well. So thank you, Ethan.
Thank you. Yeah. Andrew's got a question. He says, are essay subjects or prompts available during the summer? Yeah. So Andrew, in the PDF that you can download from Futurology, you'll see the Common App prompts. But if you just Google the Common App prompts, you'll see the main ones for the main essay. In terms of the supplemental essays, those are often released in August. So August 1st to 15th. So if you're interested in a school like, let's say, Michigan, that's when they'll release their prompts. And I don't think those are come out already. The UCs have already released theirs. They're going to be the same as last year. So you can just Google UC personal insight questions and see what those are. And just again, to plug something that you mentioned at the beginning, Anthony, if you guys are applying to the UCs, we're going to do another webinar that's specific to those, and it's a little different. So you'll hear me talk about some different strategies and techniques and give some different example essays. The UCs are looking for what's called the 14 points of comprehensive review, which are 14 specific things that they're looking for, and you can Google these and find them. But I'll talk about what those are and how you can bring those forth in your writing statements. I'm going to keep going, Anthony. If we go, we're a few minutes over, but I'm okay with that. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So Samantha asks, as a first generation, as a child, I've been challenged with English, and so far, that's what I've thought about writing about because I now tutor in English and do so much with the language, but I don't know how to incorporate all my other community service. I don't know. I do that. How does that link to each other? Okay, cool. So Samantha, first of all, that sounds super. You're a rock star. Congrats on being first gen. And the second thing I'll say is there's this exercise that I mentioned earlier to another student called the feelings and needs exercise. And you might be like, wait, what do feelings and needs have to do with this? But what that exercise can help you do is to see how some of your challenges have been connected to your extracurricular activities. And you might think, well, wait, what is he talking about? I swear to you, Google feelings and needs exercise. And, you can look at this exercise and you can walk through it. It takes you about 15 minutes and you just need a blank sheet of paper and a pen. And it'll help you see how your challenge, so learning English, led to certain effects in your life, led to certain feelings and needs. How did you meet those needs? Whatever need you were trying to meet. And I'm doing kind of a fast version of it. But based on how you met that need, that will help contextualize your many extracurricular activities. Now, keep in mind, and this is for everybody, you don't have to put all of your everything in your main essay, especially if you're applying to the UCs. You can split them up over 4 different, answers. For the main statement, what you'll need to do is make sure that it's connected to, 2 things I mentioned, your values and your needs. And I know that seems like I'm kind of talking abstractly because I'm trying to do kind of like the 1-minute answer to your question. But in short, what I'd say to you is don't feel stressed that you have to put everything in. You just need to give evidence that your needs were met or that you developed a certain value. That's what I would say include in terms of your community service and your volunteering projects. The other things, if you're worried that there's not enough there, like in your essay, you've got something called the additional info section. So the additional info section, this is for everybody again, is a box that you'll have on the Common App where you can put anything else that you feel like you haven't really gotten a chance to communicate about. You'll have an activities list, which is like your resume. So you'll definitely mention all those different community service projects. But again, if you feel like you don't have enough space in the activities list because it's only like 150 characters for each description, you can put it in the additional info section. And if you want tips on those, if you just Google College Essay Guy activities list or College Essay Guy additional info, you'll see a resource for how to write each of those. Caitlin asks, do Common App prompts change year to year? They do, Caitlin, they change slightly. And what's cool about this year is that they've got a prompt that came back from a couple years back. That's the topic of your choice. So I really am a big fan of that one. And I think it's probably the one chosen most. In fact, that one in the first one, which is to basically describe an experience that really changed you or, shaped who you are, which is basically topic of your choice, is the first prompt. So most students last year chose prompt number 1, which stayed the same pretty much. And then I have a feeling that a lot of students will choose the topic of your choice. So, but again, use the prompts if they feel interesting and inspiring, but I don't want you guys for your main Common App essay to stress too much about the prompts because they're not going to be like, oh, did they answer the question or not so much? At least not and that's counterintuitive to what your English teacher tells you. I know, your English teacher's like, you got to answer the prompt. But now the exception, and I'll just remind you of this, is those UC personal insight questions. You need to answer the prompt for those. And the Why Us essay that you'll need to write for many schools, you got to answer the prompt for those. So make sure that you are paying close attention for the prompt for those. But yes, Caitlin, the short answer is they do tend to change from year to year. And sometimes the word limit changes even. It was 500 words a few years back, and it was no word limit before that. But now it's limited strictly to 650. Any other last questions before we wrap up here? Just to remind folks, if you're having struggled logging in with that coupon code, it's Capistrano, not Capo USD. I made a mistake. I apologize. Andrew says, thank you. Andrew, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Rachel asks, let's take this as the last question. Rachel asks, are colleges less interested in the most common essays? That question kind of blows my mind, Rachel. How do you mean? Can you give me a little more context for that question? I want to make sure that I'm getting it. Are colleges less interested in the most common essays? I guess I'm not sure what you mean by most common essays. Because every essay is a unique snowflake, right? Maybe you mean like like common topics. Tell me what you mean. The essays that everyone uses. Do you mean the topics that everyone uses, Rachel? Like the mission trip essay or the sports essay, or you mean like that? Is that what you mean by the essays everyone uses? Let's see what Rachel says. I think you mean the prompts. Oh, no, don't worry about the prompts. If you're talking about our college is less interested in ones about certain prompts, don't worry about that. Like, in other words, they're not going to judge you based on choosing topic of your choice. I honestly, they don't care too much. From many of the admissions readers I've talked to, they don't care whether you've chosen one or the other. Again, I'm talking about the main Common App. I have different advice for the UCs. Some readers do get tired of certain prompts, but again, I don't think it's a reason to not, I didn't say this, but I don't think it's a reason to not choose a certain prompt. I'd say write your story. And this is advice that I give, is like, don't worry too much about what they think. There's no such they, there is no they there, it's just like, imagine that I'm reading it, or that Anthony's reading it, or, my grandmother's reading it. Like, it's just a human with feelings. And so, I've got some criteria for what I think goes into a great essay, and you can Google the Great College Essay Test and see what those are. And I talk about it on the course a little bit, but I wouldn't worry too much about what they want. I would worry about telling your story in a way that is vulnerable, that expresses your core values, that offers insight, and that's well crafted. And well crafted, that takes time. So, as long as you've spent some good time finding your story and crafting it in an interesting way that's interesting to you and interesting to the few people that you show it to, you've done your work. You've done what you should do. Samantha asked if we have any more questions, can we contact you, or where can we contact you? Samantha, take the course. That's what I would say, because we'll spend a week together, and that's where I would say the best way to get in touch with me, because then we'll be able to talk and you'll be able to understand all of the resources and stuff. And again, just want to say it one more time so people really get this. The course, for if that rate is out of range, it's pay what you can. Just email Nick, which is his email is on the website on College Essay Guy, or you can just use the contact form. So that would be the best way to get in touch with me. We'll get to know each other really well over that week.
Well, great. Ethan, I thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for participating. Thank you for attending, and we really appreciate it. But Ethan, thank you for your time. I know it was very valuable to hear that, and for these students, and some great questions are coming out. So everybody, as I said, on the website, you'll have some more resources. We'll send you a follow-up, so be on the lookout for that. We'll put this out there for you to watch again if you need to. And then again, you have your futurology resources for next year to think about if you're thinking about your essay. So Ethan, thank you again so much. It was really valuable, and we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I really so appreciate Anthony just giving the opportunity to talk to folks. And Devin just messaged me, my brother, and he said that a couple students asked, can we extend it? They need to ask their parents. And so, the 20 minutes thing, we can extend it a little bit, until tomorrow, say, if folks need to check in with somebody about that, because not everybody has a credit card just sitting by. So anyway, so I'm happy to extend that.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Have a good night.